Picture this. You're in Egypt, standing on the banks of the iconic Nile River. On the opposite bank, you can see your destination, just a few hundred meters away. But there's no bridge, and unless you have a boat, the only way to get there is to drive a staggering 985 kilometers around the river. That's over 14 hours of driving, just to cover a distance you could probably swim in a matter of minutes. Egypt is a land of incredible contrasts. Known as the Gift of the Nile, this country boasts one of the most historically significant rivers in the world. It's been the lifeblood of ancient civilizations, carving out fertile lands in the midst of an arid desert. The Nile is also home to unique ecosystems, supporting everything from papyrus reeds to Nile crocodiles. But here's the catch. While the river connects and sustains life, it also divides people, creating physical barriers that are surprisingly difficult to overcome. Today we're exploring a fascinating phenomenon, the longest short path. Cases where places that seem so close are, in reality, incredibly hard to reach. Egypt's Nile is just the start of our journey. Stick around and we'll dive into why this happens and what it teaches us about modern-day connections, transport, and our relationship with distance. Let's start with one of the most interesting examples, the distance between Brazzaville in the Republic of the Congo and Kinshasa in the DRC. They are the closest nation capitals on Earth, separated by just 1.5 kilometers as the crow flies across the Congo River. But were it not for the ferry service that operates 4 times a day, you would have to take an 838-kilometer round trip for nearly 16 hours just to get from one city to the other, crossing at the only bridge that spans the Congo River, the Marechal Bridge in Matadi. Plans for a bridge crossing the Congo River to connect the two countries have faced decades of delays and challenges. Initially financed in 1991, the project was shelved in 1993 due to funding issues and political instability in the ROC. Revived in 2003, the bridge was redesigned to a downstream location for easier construction, but disagreements stalled progress. The DRC opposed the project, citing economic concerns for its port cities and demanded additional investments, including a deep-water port in Banana. After years of dormancy, the African Development Bank pledged significant funding in 2017, and a formal agreement for a 1,575-metre toll bridge was signed in 2018. Despite this, the construction has been delayed multiple times, with work expected to begin in 2023 and completion anticipated in 2028. Moving into the depths of South America's jungle, we find another familiar face, the Amazon River. By far the largest river in the world by discharge volume, and reportedly the longest in the world too, a claim fought between it and the Nile, the Amazon River has no bridges that span across its banks. Instead, if you were to attempt to drive, ignoring the ferry, from one side of the river to the other at its closest point, 2 ports next to the city of Manaus, you would be taken on a journey of 9,895 kilometers around the Amazon rainforest. From Brazil to Venezuela, Colombia to Ecuador, and Peru, back into Brazil, your trip, if you make it, would take over 6.5 days of continuous driving to complete. Finally, we head to Europe for one of the most important stretches of water, the Strait of Gibraltar. Historically acting as a navigational route for empires such as the Romans, Carthaginians, and the Berbers, the strait became a critical point to conduct business as shipping and trade became more prevalent in the region. As a result, the region has been contested for centuries. Presently, around 300 ships utilize the Strait of Gibraltar each day for trade, as well as transportation, fishing, and tourism. Ferries run between the continents of Europe and Africa daily, which take about 35 minutes at the narrowest width of the waterway to get from one point to the other, just 13 kilometers apart. And yet, were it not for these ferry services, if you were to drive from the bottom of Gibraltar to the tip of Morocco, you would be embarking on a 5-day journey over 11,200 kilometers from point to point. You would cross 16 different countries, tiptoeing through 4 active war zones, traversing across inhospitable deserts, and circumnavigating the entire Mediterranean to arrive at your destination. This got me thinking. We're more connected than ever, yet there are still parts of the world where our paths are obstructed by geography, politics, and infrastructure. We're literally a stone's throw away, but miles apart in terms of convenience. The idea of being close but so far away is more than just a matter of geography. In many ways, it reflects the challenges of modern life. We live in a globalized world, yet we're still bound by barriers that sometimes feel just as restrictive as the ones faced by ancient travelers. The internet and technology have made the world feel smaller, but that hasn't erased the physical barriers that still define our daily lives. Roads, airports, borders, and waterways continue to divide us, despite the fact that many of us are only a click away from someone on the other side of the planet. One major issue here is infrastructure. Roads, ports, and transportation systems are often designed based on historical needs or economic priorities, not the most direct route. These designs can leave communities stranded, relying on specific transport methods, like ferries or bridges, that are not always reliable or available. Take the case of small island communities. In places like the Orkney Islands in Scotland or certain remote areas of Indonesia, people rely on boats or ferries for daily transportation. This reliance can make travel between close islands incredibly unpredictable and difficult. It's not just about inconvenience. It's about how this reliance on certain types of transport can leave communities vulnerable. What happens when a ferry breaks down, or a bridge is damaged, a river floods? In these cases, travel between places that seem close could be cut off entirely. In 2017, the only bridge connecting the island of Saint Martin to the mainland was destroyed by Hurricane Irma, isolating the community. It's a harsh reminder of how fragile systems are and how easily close can turn into inaccessible. In these places, residents aren't just inconvenienced, they're dependent on these infrastructures for everything. From food deliveries to medical care, their daily lives revolve around the reliability of these routes. The more we depend on these systems, the more vulnerable we become when they break down. The disconnect between proximity and access isn't just a problem in remote areas. Even in large cities, we often face barriers, whether it's urban planning, roadworks, train delays, or unpredictable weather. Modern life is full of examples where short distances take longer than expected. The obvious solution might not necessarily be the right answer, however. Take the Amazon River, for example. It might seem like the easiest way to connect the north and south of this waterway would be to build bridges. However, this infrastructure might not entirely be required. Communities living along the banks of the Amazon have adjusted to the remoteness with the use of boats. Ships, ferries, and other vessels allow these population centres to use the ever-changing river as a natural highway through the rainforest, allowing efficient transportation of goods along its tributaries. These communities have also developed specifically to harbour most, if not all, of their infrastructure on just one side of the river, as opposed to being split across both. This removes the need to build bridges or tunnels to cross these parts, as there wouldn't really be a reason to. Back in the Congo, Kinshasa and Brazzaville have another solution: the shortest international commercial flight in the world. Passengers on this flight of just 24 kilometres will in reality have just buckled themselves in before preparing for landing just 50 minutes later. The world is more connected than ever, but distance and access are still shaped by geography, infrastructure, and vulnerability. The next time you see two places that seem close, remember that travel is never as simple as it appears. And in a world that's constantly changing, sometimes the longest paths are the ones that seem the shortest. So, what is the longest, shortest path in the world? Diving into Reddit threads on the topic, we find this location, remote Borneo. A distance of just 108 meters across what appears to be a small river separates these two locations. And yet, you would have to drive for over 77 hours on a 4,247 kilometer long journey across Malaysia, Brunei, Indonesia, and back into Malaysia just to reach the other side. A distance 39,324 times longer than the distance between the 2 points. So, what do you think? Are we really as connected as we think, or is there still a long way to go? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this exploration, make sure to subscribe for more content like this. See you in the next one.